Radio Flange Goblin.
No, you're not imagining things, and neither are you part of some low-rent reality-style found-footage horror movie in which disgruntled spirits seemingly go around slamming doors and lighting candles for no good cocking reason. You are actually listening to Radio Flange Goblet, the only radio station that provides free ham to every 3,000th listener. We do not stipulate how much ham or for how long you'll receive it, but I assure you we do have free ham to give away. We just have 2,898 listeners more to go. If only the Gerald Pustule Queries the News show would go viral. I mean, just the other day he insinuated that Prince Harry was probably not that fond of toffee crisps, and you can't get much more outrageous and deserving of Twitter's vitriol than that. I mean, good God, what are you all playing at? One show that won't go viral anytime soon, except in a way that makes people sick and wish they were doing anything else but listening to it, it's the After Movie Diner, which this week comes from a tunnel under the Thames River that was used in wartime for smuggling sex badgers into the officer's strategic command centre for wild wartime badger orgies. One such gross bestiality tryst would give Ronald Forbes Adam several strategic ideas for the organising of the Dunkirk perimeter.
You're listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, John Cross.
Hello, and welcome to the After Movie Diner, Mark 8. Because, I mean, we must have rebooted this damn show, I don't know how many cock-mothering times. But anyway.
It's like a reinvention. Like you've reinvented the diner 8 times.
I don't know. I just picked that number out of a hat.
Well, I mean, if you had to think about the number of times because you started off with a particular kind of diner, right?
Yeah.
Where it went on for a couple of hours. You talked about a bunch of different things that weren't really connected. It was loose. It was loosey-goosey. And then it was reinvented as a go to the cinema show, right?
Yeah.
Probably about 50 episodes in.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Yes, I guess so. Okay.
And then reinvented again for the pandemic, I suppose, would have been. Or would you class Booth Talk? No, because Booth Talk's a whole different thing.
I just mean that there has been probably between the time I started and now 8 times that I've gone, fuck it, I don't want to do it. And taken like a month off or like 6 weeks off. And that's probably happened 8 times.
Yeah, that feels like a good number.
So here we are. And I think we owe it because we unfortunately, despite having been off 5 weeks or whatever, it's been 4 weeks or whatever since we recorded a new episode. We've had an alarmingly small amount of shed talk. No shed talk. So that's very disappointing. And
you live in a place where you could have a shed, but you're currently persistently choosing not to.
Oh, and that's why, like, you think shedists out there are upset at me?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, sheddies, not shedists. Yeah.
Sheddies out there they feel shunned.
They feel shunned. Shed shunned.
Shuddered them.
What?
Shuddered them.
I've shuddered them. Yes.
Shuddered.
They feel shed shunned, and so they should. They should feel shed shunned.
Better to go when you've been shunned than a shed.
Oh, but you know, Blokey from the World's Greatest Shed website or whatever it was, and I forget.
Called World's Greatest Shed website, because if it's not, then he should seriously consider rebranding.
No, it was just called shed.com. I think. But
I personally prefer the World's Greatest Shed website.
.com. .web. .st. World's Greatest Shed. .web. .st. Yeah. he was talking about starting a shed podcast, and I can't help thinking that the whole TED Talk, Shed Talk thing, that should be the...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like you would do it like the TED Talk logo, but Shed Talk.
Mate, you're a marketing guru. How you haven't been snapped up by Madison Avenue is beyond me at this point.
However, if you had a guest on Shed Talk whose name was Ted,
yeah, you'd be in trouble then.
It would be a Shed TED Talk or a TED Shed Talk.
And is it Ted the Head Shed? Isn't one of the characters in the World Staring Championships Ted the Head Shed? I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, maybe. Big train reference for people who, all 8 people who remember that very short-lived sketch show.
Well, that's what I deal in. I deal in obscure references that people don't get, in the hope that makes me seem more cosmopolitan.
More cosmopolitan.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Don't you know that's what I've been shooting for all these years?
It is.
You've known me. I've been shooting for the cosmopolitan stars.
Oh, okay. Not a
to come across at any point, not only as cosmopolitan, but as even trying to be cosmopolitan. You seem so stunned by the news that I enjoy trying to be cosmopolitan that I'm now worried that I've so far fallen short that people didn't even know I was trying.
I think the idea, having known you for as long as that, the idea that you are trying to be anything.
So your quarrel is not with the word cosmopolitan. Your quarrel is the word trying.
I mean, you are trying, like knowing you is trying. But
yeah, good point.
But
to be is to be tried.
To be tried and convicted quite frequently as well.
In a court of reality.
In a court of ennui. But no, I suppose your Tipfer is a bit cosmopolitan.
To the court of ennui.
Court of ennui.
And then you could be Judge Cross in
Judge
the court
Cross.
of ennui.
I'm Judge Cross in the court of ennui. Dun dun. Tonight on court television or whatever they have in America.
Yeah. Ennui court.
Ennui court. Tonight on court TV. Ennui. Jim Wallace. I suppose you're the one thing I'm going to miss this summer, walking to the diner with you every week, would be the re-emergence of your Tipfer, which you tend to like wearing in the summer months.
I have to pull it out soon. I'm only taking very short walks in the morning now, so I don't really need it. But I missed that too. I missed my hat.
Yeah, your hat, Jim's hat, Jim Wallace hat. Oh, Jim Wallace, it's Jim Wallace's hat.
Yeah.
He's walking to the door now with his old shoulder plate. And if you don't know what I mean, that's company slash the mate. I don't get the company, he sounds a little posh, but he scrubs up lovely, he's clearly fixed the dosh. Jim Wallace has gotta brag you at. The games are thinking fucker, they always was like that. Jim Wallace, although we love your rat, the man starts of Monty, he said he wasn't back.
Speaking of which, wait. The circuitous route which we took to get, I mean, the connections that we've made. You're not even aware. But who wrote and recorded the Jim Wallace's hat song? Dr. Fuzz. And do you know who is our latest Patreon sponsor? Who
see that?
Yeah,
see that. Bless his cotton socks. Bless his fuzzy cotton socks.
Indeed. So through our stream of consciousness, some may say inane banter, we have, in a wonderful way, come back around to Dr. Fuzz, who is let's just let's blame Dr. Fuzz or celebrate him for being responsible for the next wave of the diner. Let's just call him responsible, even though he's only partially responsible. But let's claim he's responsible. Say thank you, Dr. Fuzz, for your patronage on Patreon. Patreon.com/aftermoviediner. That's patreon.com/aftermoviediner. If you want to sponsor the show, as Dr. Fuzz has done, it was the thing that maybe kicked me up the backside and thought maybe we should do more episodes.
Well, I'm glad that you got the kick up the backside. I mean, I'm always ready. I'm always willing.
Yes.
You're
not always able, but that's fine.
No, but that's more of a case of quality.
Well, it's more of a case that your limbs never really worked very well.
I'm doing really worth it for anybody. I mean, is anybody's ears really interested?
So before we get into tonight's movie, we should definitely get something out of the way. So I posted on social media this week that we had good news and bad news, good news and bad news, good news and bad news, because we do. We have good news and bad news.
I missed it. What's the good news and bad news?
I don't know how good the good news is.
But you're pretty sure the bad news is bad.
Well, the bad news is definitely bad for like 2 people.
Okay.
So I asked everyone on social media if they wanted the good news first or the bad news first. People being what they are said that they wanted the bad news first.
Okay.
So the bad news is that there is a 98.6% chance that there will be no sleazy Spader springtime this year.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not completely my fault, right? Because I know I'm not always. I don't want people to think that I put my foot down and said I'm not doing sleazy Spader springtime.
No.
My foot never stays down for very long. In fact, my feet might as well be made of some kind of jelly substance that is easy to disappear, right?
So indeed, and I'm going to explain this.
Thank you.
We were all
hordes of Spader fans.
Yes, I need to explain it for the hordes of Spader fans, mainly Andy Lunn. So
Lunn bought my album, and I wanted to give back to Lunn the gift of sleaze.
Yeah,
and it's out of my hands. It's out of my greasy.
It is. So let me weave a tale of Sleazy Spader Springtime. We were going to do Sleazy Spader Springtime, but neither of us was feeling it. Like neither of us were gung ho. First of all, I had to talk Jim into doing it, which is fine. And I totally understand why, because who really wants to watch, after the last 5 years of doing it, who really wants to watch any more of these bad movies? Because to be fair, most of the films are not very good. And essentially, much like the Eric Idle season, it was one of those things where we, without us having the joy of just being able to relentlessly bash Eric Idle.
Which was fun.
But you wouldn't do a 5th one. Like, you wouldn't have gone and done a 5th Eric Idle movie. Like, 4 was more than enough. I mean, 4 was like 3 more than enough.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
So 4 was 3 more than enough. And we were both a little like, first of all, I'd been going through a move. I've been doing a lot of music. Jim and I have spoken on many occasions about how I just wasn't, in the way that Jim had not been like feeling music recently, whereas Jim had been a big music fan back in the day. I had not been feeling movies particularly. Like Kim and I, after we moved, had just really kind of been watching TV or stuff that we'd watched before, kind of like comfort things. We weren't really like watching new things. I couldn't get excited about any of the new things. And then Spader just felt like compacting that. Like it just felt like not only are you not feeling in the mood to watch movies you haven't seen or non-cozy movies, but then you're also going to force yourself to watch just generally abysmal movies, and then try and milk even more jokes about Spader out of something you've been doing for 5 years. It just wasn't... At a time when I had moved to the countryside and was trying to find like my new piece, my new level, my new place, my new whatever, it just didn't feel like anything I wanted to do. Like it just felt like...
You're saying it felt like Red Dwarf 8.
Yeah.
A step too far. It's not funny anymore. Stop doing it.
Well, I mean, yes, but it also felt a little like I wasn't in the mood to do it, and I wasn't in the mood to do movies and necessarily even podcasts. I wanted to talk to you every week, but I wasn't necessarily in the mood to keep analyzing films or whatever. I just wasn't in the mood anymore. But I wanted to talk to you, and I was getting to the point where I was really enjoying the banter and not hating, but just not being into talking about the films. Then compounded by the fact that I just wasn't into like watching films at the time. Then you try and triple down with the whole, then I'm going to sit and try and watch like Spader films that I have no interest in whatsoever and try and get something out of them. It just felt like a step too far. So I kind of just said, we're not going to do that this year. And Jim agreed because I don't think he wanted to do it anyway. So I would have done Andy.
He would have
done it.
I want you to know that I was willing to do it.
He would have done. I think this is the thing, is that at the moment, and it's purely selfish on my part, but at the moment, I need to be driven by my moods rather than by deadlines, requirements, expectations, or whatever. I just need to be driven by my moods. Because that way, at least something will happen. You know what I mean? If I try and like force something that I'm really not in the mood for or really not in the place for, nothing will happen, or what will happen will just be bad. So I said, I'm going to knock Sleazy Spader on the head. Then we did Willy's Wonderland, which will be released tomorrow. Has been edited, is up, and will be released tomorrow. It's already on Patreon. If you're already a Patreon subscriber like Dr. Fuzz, you already have access to our latest episode.
To Fuzz with Love.
But if you are just a regular podcast listener and want it for free, you have to wait a whole 48 hours. So that's
they should.
That's what's happening. The freeloading bastards. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/After Movie Diner, and be like Dr. Fuzz and support the show.
Yeah, cure yourself of your freeloading tendencies.
And then maybe you'll get more episodes. So the bad news is no Sleazy Spader. The good news is, and again, I don't know how good this good news is. The good news is there are more episodes. The show is not going away. The show is still going. There will be more podcasts. So bad news, no Sleazy Spader. Good news, but there are more podcasts. So, you know, if you're someone who's like, but wait, I want to control every aspect of the podcast and demand that they do certain things.
Play the hits.
Then I'm sorry. No,
we're not going to do it.
We're not going to do it. What we're going to do, forget playing the hits. In fact, let's not even talk about sheds anymore. Controversy. Whoa.
This is by Derek Smalls. He wrote this.
Don't think we're ready for an 8-hour jazz exploration or whatever that is.
Odyssey.
It's a jazz odyssey. It's an odyssey. This will be an 8-hour jazz odyssey version of the After Movie Diner going forward, where you won't know what you're getting week in, week out, because we're scrapping seasons. We're not doing seasons anymore. We're not doing Sleazy Spader Springtime. However, what we have agreed, we've made a gentleman's agreement that 1 week I pick a film and 1 week Jim picks a film. Jim,
I'm probably going to err on the side of strange but intriguing VOD, like straight to video releases.
Yes.
That's where I'm going towards. That's where I'm thinking.
And my thinking was this. I needed something that I could like go like a light bulb moment. I needed like a bing, that's what I want to do kind of thing. Because I needed to get back into film. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing this as they waltz ungracefully, slobbishly, and something like an errant backyard hippie into their 40s. But as you go into your 40s,
things don't matter anymore. You cease to feel joy.
I mean, there's
any genuine sense of connection to things that make you feel.
Yes. Well, there's that. There's quite a lot of that. But also the passion, and let's just say the patience you had for sometimes the things that were involved in your passion. Either wane or dull in you a little
much
bit.
Like us.
Much like us. Wane and dull. Or dull and wane. Or dull Wayne. Dull Wayne, which is a rather unsuccessful hip-hop DJ from Lowestoft, I'm dull Wayne.
Dull Wayne and the lowest off massive.
Mixing the most mediocre of beats.
Yeah.
But I wanted something that was going to reinvigorate. I always like something that's going to kind of kick my butt and be a bit of a light bulb moment and reinvigorate my whole interest in things. And many things aligned. First of all, Jim and I talked about doing the podcast again, which was awesome. And Jim agreed that I could pick the first one. The second thing that happened was I had been talking with a friend of mine about music and about new music and about how the best thing that I found doing my albums lately, but also being on Twitter and being on Spotify playlists and listening to my Discover Weekly and various other things, is that a lot of people think of new music, right, as the top 40 or whatever, right? So, you know, they think of the dance pop stuff that we get fed all the time.
Who thinks of the music as the top 40?
Well, no,
1989.
Yeah, well, true. Okay, I'm using outdated vernacular to describe wanky, you know, lowest common denominator dance pop bollocks that we tend to see on social media, on on SNL, whatever. Just, you know who I'm talking about, right? You know who I'm talking about. The people who are on the MTV Music Awards or the Grammys or whatever. Top 40 is just a nice, quick vernacular. I mean,
even all those things you're saying are out of date. You know what I mean?
They're not. They're still the Grammys. That's still a thing. MTV Music Awards.
I suppose so. I mean, barely, but yes, I take your point.
Dude, the top 40 is still a thing. That's still a thing that exists.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
This is what you've missed. Listeners, this is what you've missed. These cutting edge dissections.
You try to make a point and me interrupting constantly.
Yeah. Sorry, having listened to a bunch of new music and really enjoying it, like really liking it and finding some awesome new stuff that will become music that I love for a long time. Coupled with seeing a quote from Stuart Gordon, the now sadly deceased horror director, that someone posted on Facebook, which was about like during times of, you know, crises or oppression, horror flourishes, right? And the two conversations I was having that day, or the two things that I saw that day, slammed together in my mind, and I was like, "Now, come on, John, there must be some good new horror out there. There isn't," because I've been thinking of new horror as shitty remakes that I hated, or people who wanted to be John Carpenter but were so desperately not John Carpenter it was upsetting. And then fucking whatever bandwagon Hack Snyder decides to jump on this week. Like, that's kind of how I was identifying new horror. And I was sort of saying that there was like, you know, I no real great new horror. Oh, and the third part of new horror that I would say is all the like fucking Insidious, Conjuring, Annabelle, fucking that whole fucking door slamming, drawers falling out of cabinet fucking collection of bollocks. But I was thinking, much like music, you know, looking around on Spotify and looking around on playlists and kicking around on Twitter and finding new music that way that I really loved. I'm like, there must be a way, you know, the internet is there. There must be a way to find new horror that I could explore and actually really love and really get into. So I took my time and I went through a bunch of lists and a bunch of blogs and a bunch of Twitter feeds and a bunch of other things that were all the best unknown horror of the last 20 years or the top, you know, rarest horror of 2010 through 2020 or whatever. Like, I found all these lists of like groovy horror films. And then I spent a really nice evening watching probably upwards of like 50 trailers on YouTube, any trailer that I could find for horror films and things. And you can normally tell within about, first of all, the one thing I will say is all horror trailers, it doesn't matter what they're for, all horror trailers are edited by exactly the same person. That's the first thing I'll say. But the second thing is that even though they are all the same, in other words, long, slow zoom towards a door, a creaky noise, an ominous rumble. Then there's like a beep, beep, jump scare. Then it cuts to like a B-movie actor you maybe have seen in something once. Then it cut back to rumbling noises. Then there's a quote on the screen. Like all the trailer is exactly the same. Despite that, you do get a sense, if you're me, I guess, you get a sense of what the movie might be like and what the movie actually is versus what the trailer is trying to tell you that it is. Do you know what I mean? Like when you watch a trailer, you can kind of go...
No, I know what you mean. You got to read between the lines sometimes.
Yeah. There's the editing of the trailer, which is its own gloss, sheen, and bollocks. But then when you just focus on the scenes that it's showing you, you go, oh, that looks like it's well shot. Or, oh, that's an interesting theme. Or, oh, that's a neat concept I hadn't heard of before. Or, okay, that's got some satire in it that I'm interested in. So whatever the criteria were, and there was a ton of criteria, I put together a list of about 25 to 30 new horror films, some of which Jim has already seen. So I'll probably just watch those on my own and kind of report back maybe. And the other ones that I'll keep pitching to him every other week, if I'm still enthused by this idea, will be ones that we cover on the diner. And then every other week, it'll be whatever mad sci-fi or weird VOD stuff that Jim wants. And what's nice is that I was talking to your brother today, and he said, you know, the thing I always really liked was when you kind of what you like about when we used to do the show, which was we'd go to the cinema and instead of seeing, Marvel movie 15 or, Fast and Furious 10 or Saw 28 or whatever, we would go see Christian Slater in Stranded or, Samuel L. Jackson in Big Game or John Cusack in Bagman or Nick Cage in The Trust or whatever it was. Like we went and saw these films. And they weren't always, as time went on, there wasn't always those movies out anymore because most of them were moving over to VOD. And what I think is nice about doing the diner going forward is the stuff I'm picking out, I think falls neatly into that category of it's not the Insidious and the Saws and the Conjurings and the whatever. It's not the A horror movie. It's the little one that came out on Prime and maybe didn't get a lot of people talking about it, or came out on Netflix and, didn't get a lot of people talking about it, whatever. It's going to be those kind of movies that hopefully, real movie fans and real horror fans respond to. And then similarly, the VOD stuff you pick is probably going to be along the same kind of lines, right?
Yeah. By the way, if you have a week where you give me like 4 choices, like I'm envisaging I'll have seen a lot of them because me and Teresa watch a lot of modern horror.
Yeah.
So like you gave me a list of 4 and I'd seen 2 of them. So if the one we didn't choose, don't watch that one in case next week I've seen all 4 of them.
What?
You know what I mean? I'm saying I think it was His House, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying don't watch His House because the next time it's your go, you might have 4 and I might have seen all 4 of them.
Oh, yeah. No, if you haven't seen one, like this time round, it was between 2 movies and we picked one of them. The other one that you haven't seen, I'll put that back in the mix again.
Yeah, great. Okay, perfect.
But the ones that you've said you've seen, I'll watch.
Yeah.
And if you come back around and go, well, actually, I feel like watching, like The Void was one of them, right? And you really like that. I really, really, really want to watch The Void. Like when I watch the trailer, I'm like, this is right up my alley. And, based on the fact that, you really enjoyed it, that's good as well. So my feeling was, if in 6 months you're like, actually, I feel like watching The Void again, then we can do it then. Like, it's not a problem.
Okay, great.
So, I don't want you to completely discount something because you already watched it like 3 years ago or whatever. We can always do it again if you feel like doing it again. Or I'll just keep trying to find little neat genre things that are off the beaten path because I'd rather do that and feel some love. I feel love for doing this because I get to talk to you, but I want to feel some love for also talking about the films because I was getting a little jaded on the film side of things.
Yeah, I do see that. And I also think sometimes forcing the seasons can be painful. You end up watching a couple of things you don't really want to watch. So I'm all on board for it, mate.
But it also doesn't mean for people who love us talking about retro movies and things, there was also a documentary I watched, the In the Search of Darkness Part 2 documentary, which is all about 80s horror. And there were like 3 films on there. There was only 3 out of like the 50 films that it covered. But there were 3 films on there that I haven't seen, 2 of which were streaming. And I thought, oh, if we want to do like a, 80s horror we didn't catch at the time kind of episode, we can do that as well. So,
yeah, I'm all right with that, mate. Just like we used to do mostly modern stuff, but if there was a good older movie playing at the
Roxy
then we'd go see it, no problem.
Yeah.
Or Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
We saw that at City Cinemas down in the Village, right? Just on like 11th Street.
When Movie Pass was a thing.
And then the Quad. Oh man, I missed the Quad.
Yeah, the Quad was great. We saw the Abominable Snowman there, right? I think we saw the Abominable Snowman at the Quad.
Maybe.
I think so. In fact, I think, weirdly enough, Dracula was the first movie we watched with Movie Pass, and the Abominable Snowman we were supposed to watch with Movie Pass, but that was the day they went bust. They ran out of money and none of our tickets were any good. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember that.
I'm pretty sure that was... No, it was...
Didn't we go to the Quad? Didn't we go to the Quad towards the end of Movie Pass, and they were like, the only film we're accepting Movie Pass for is this like Lithuanian 30-minute.
Yeah, I do remember that. About
shoes or something.
Yeah,
I don't want to watch a 30-minute Lithuanian documentary about shoes, but thank you.
No, very wise.
So to that end. The whole rambling introduction of this episode, I picked this week. Well, Jim picked it as well because I offered him a choice.
Yeah. No, I picked it. I picked it.
1922. It's a Netflix original film from 2017, starring Thomas Jane, and it is an adaptation of Tut Stephen King novella, and it is directed by Zach Hilditch. And I believe, was it Zach Hilditch's first movie that he directed? Or was it his debut? No, it was not. His debut was Transmission back in 2012, which is weirdly, Transmission weirdly sounds a lot like Cargo, the other movie that I suggested, the Australian outback zombie.
Oh, that's
film.
a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, no, I've actually watched the first 10 minutes of Cargo, but Transmission, which is only a short that he made, is actually set across the post-apocalyptic Western Australian desert highways. Transmission takes the audience on a compelling journey of survival as they follow 10-year-old Tilly and her father, Jim, which sort of was similar to Cargo in the sense that it's a guy, like a guy and his kid, even though the kid in Cargo is a baby. But obviously made years before. And then These Final Hours, which was a full-length movie, which again is sort of a post-apocalyptic movie. And might be, I have to say, they're all very highly rated IMDb. This is These Final Hours is 6.7 and 1922 is 6.3, which for IMDb, for anyone who knows IMDb, those are actually high ratings for straight-to-video movies. Most straight-to-video movies get a 5.2 if they're being generous. Even the ones we've loved, Bagman, The Trust and stuff, have lower ratings on IMDb. But These Final Hours sounds interesting. It's a drama sci-fi thriller. Self-obsessed young man makes his way to the party to end all parties on the last day of Earth, but ends up saving the life of a little girl searching for her father. That sounds like a possible like post-apocalyptic thing.
It's probably something that did well on Netflix. I might have seen it because what happens is it's the same thing they did with Mike Flanagan.
These Final Hours is on Prime right now, so we could watch it.
But it might have been. I'd be surprised because Mike Flanagan, who's the guy that did The Haunting of Hill House, he had like a bunch of films that didn't do that well, but then they did really well on Netflix, and so that's why they gave him Haunting of Hill House to do. In fact, I think they released one of his like unreleased movies that was caught in a kind of a release hell. Like the company that was going to release it folded. And anyway, his stuff is always really great. But yeah, and it's their way of knowing like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing because we've got the figures to back it up. You know, I mean, it's not box office. It's just like this guy makes films that people want to watch.
Well, dude, not only that, but Zach Hilditch's follow-up to 1922 which is also apparently on Netflix right now, from 2019, Rattlesnake. When a single mother accepts the help of a mysterious woman after her daughter is bitten by a rattlesnake, she finds herself making an unthinkable deal with the devil to repay the stranger.
Oh, that sounds good.
Right? Maybe we do a Zach Hilditch. Maybe occasionally we dip into the ditch of Hilditch and watch one of his movies. But anyway, 1922 from 2017. Did you know, looking this up, Netflix only started making original movies in 2015, and their initial slate of films ran from 2015 to 2018 and included this one. Also, along with stuff like I Just Don't Feel Okay in the World Anymore, whatever that one is with Elijah Wood that wasn't.
Yeah.
And a bunch of others. All the Pee-wee Funhouse sequel and the Adam Sandler ones and some others. But this was in the first 2 years that Netflix was even making original films. But it was one that Zach Hilditch initially mounted on his own and was bought by Netflix later on.
Okay.
And it's a very simple story, so it won't take us long to explain. And I won't spoil anything. I'll just tell you what's in the trailer. A father, a son, and a mother living in Nebraska in 1922. The woman's father dies, leaving them 100 more acres of their farm. They have, I think, 80 acres or something, and then he leaves them another 100 acres. She wants to sell that. In fact, she wants to sell out the whole farm and move to Omaha because she doesn't want to live in this corn husk of a town anymore. This bothers the father no end. The father manipulates the son a little bit against his mother/wife, and the father and son end up murdering the wife in order to keep the farm, keep the land, keep everything status quo. And the paranoia and the anxiety and the horror and the repercussions of that then play out throughout the rest of the movie. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And as I said, it stars Thomas Jane, Molly Parker, and Dylan Schmid as I believe, the young kid, right? Yes. As Wilfred James, Arlette James, and Henry James, respectively. It is set in Hemingford Home in Nebraska, which is a place that Stephen King has put in The Stand and It and Misery, I think, and a bunch of others. He does like mentioning this stuff. It's where Abigail Fremantle, Mother Abigail, is living.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's about creeping dread and the sins of the father and it's typical. There's sort of two Stephen Kings, right? There's kind of like Maine Stephen King, and then there's like Nebraska Stephen King. And this kind of plays with all the tropes of Nebraska Stephen King. Okay, well, you will be able to hear our review of 1922 and more inane drivel and banter after these few commercial messages. We do apologize about having to have these, but in order to stay on the Spreaker platform that we use to host our show, we are required to have adverts, so please just take a moment, listen to these, fast forward them if you can. I don't know if you can, but if you can, fast forward them. But please know that the After Movie Diner does not endorse any of the adverts you're about to hear, especially if they are insurance commercials of any kind. Insurance commercials need to stop what they're doing immediately. It has become a plague. It has become a rash. It has become a boil on the arse of humanity. These endless cocking insurance commercials trying to be funny. I want to find whoever thought that insurance companies should be anything other than dull, tweedy men in back rooms stealing all of our money. If whoever thought they should be funny, young, wacky, hip fucking commercials with idiots and fucking emus and talking gecko lizards and weird people in aprons. I have no idea who came up with this crap, but whoever it is, stop it immediately. I hate you. I hate your face. So annoying. Insurance companies are the worst. They're the worst. Stop trying to make them all fun and have a sense of humor. They don't have a sense of humor. They are literally one of the major reasons why the world is the way they are now. So anyway, that enough for me. We just do not endorse any commercials you're about to hear. But anyway, put up with it, and then we'll be back with our review of 1922. And if you enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to support us over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner, patreon.com/aftermoviediner. So I've talked more than long enough. Way more than long enough. So why don't you go ahead, sir, and give us your first pre-spoiler appraisal of 1922, and then we will just go on and potentially spoil it, but who cares?
Pre-spoiler or no spoiler appraisal. I liked it. I enjoyed watching it. There was a bunch of things in it that I won't forget. Like images and moments,
which we can get into.
But they were very, very memorable, and I think some of them I will like really remember.
Should people watch it? Out of 10. Out of 10.
Out of 10.
Unless, if it's not a yes or no answer.
I think they should, but I'd say I think it's definitely like a Netflix movie, but it's kind of like a 1 a.m. Netflix movie. You know, it's quite, it's very moody and quite slow, and not a whole bunch happens. And it's not really got a narrative exactly. It's based on a novella, and it does have like a short story kind of a feel to it, in that it's more like a morality play than anything else, in that it's very obvious that what they're going to do is a bad idea and that it's not going to end well, but it's just about watching how things don't end well for them. And there's a sort of
there's a supernatural, I don't think we're spoiling too much to say that there is a supernatural hint.
Yeah, it's never explicitly to the movie. I'm sure in the Stephen King book, it's not, there isn't any doubt. I'm sure it's absolutely like a supernatural thing. But in the movie, it's definitely like, it could be in his head, you know, right. It could just be all in his head, but right. It is quite an arresting image to be haunted by. And it is like, it's sort of like the whole movie is a lot like its soundtrack. It's got a very kind of unnerving, it's like there's a persistent unnervingness, as it were, about the whole experience. And there's not like peaks and troughs even. And the pace is steady, but it's steady. Like everything is just steadily heading downwards. Like there's an inexorable downward quality to everything. And I like sort of really liked what Thomas Jane was doing, but also was a bit occasionally put off by it.
Yeah, it's incredible. When I was looking up the movie, apparently Thomas Jane, when this first came out, Thomas Jane got a lot of plaudits from critics, saying this was one of his like most arresting performances and one of his best performances. His performance never annoyed me, like never actively annoyed me. It never put me on edge. But I was watching it going like, this is borderline parody. Like it's borderline.
Yeah.
If you asked John Q. Public to do his impression of a kind of turn of the century Dust Bowl hick from Nebraska, they would do what Thomas Jane is doing in this movie. Also, he makes the decision, and it's never commented on, but he makes the decision to never open his teeth when he talks.
Yeah.
Which makes it, which sort of compounds it even further, because I was watching it. The only reason why I wouldn't watch it at 1 a.m. is you'd have to have the volume up so loud to hear what people were actually saying. Because half the time they talk about it, you can't fucking tell what the hell they're saying anyway. It's all fucking blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I can't hear you. Like, I get you're trying to do a character. Like, speak so I can understand it.
Yeah, it's a shame because right at the beginning, when he's in the hotel room, and he's like hearing things in the wall, that was really, really good. Yes. It was like that thing where it was so good it was almost funny. Yeah. You know, like what he was doing was so arresting and.
Well, physically, he's very good. He's
physically very good. The voice is, you're right. Physically, he is great, and all of his reactions are like when he's like cornered by the reporters at the train station. And
the best scene is when he sat in the corner of the house, being snowed on.
Oh yeah, the cow walks in.
Mad face on him.
Yeah,
and then the cow walks in. I thought that was absolutely.
No, you're right. No, you know what? You're absolutely right. Physically, he's brilliant.
Really good. Yes,
really good at his expressions, the way he walks. I love the way he after one of the things happens, he's like carrying his hand behind the hat or like tucking it into a coat. You know what I mean? Like there's like it's just really nice things. But the voice is can be a little unnerving, not like off-putting, but just like ever so slightly sometimes throws you out of it. But it's full of stuff like that, like the him sitting in the snow and the cow walking in, or the even the rat bite was so. It was like I've never seen a bite before that was upsetting.
Yes.
You know, when he looks at the way he's been bitten, it's upsetting somehow. It's not gross or gory. It's like, oh God.
I mean, it is gory, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it is, but it's not like dripping or anything. It's just like, I don't know. And even like the bit when they pull the sheet back on the son.
Yes.
And it's like utterly, utterly horrifying.
Yes.
But it also is like, is there something written on his face? Like briefly it looked like somebody'd scratched something into it, like a word and it wasn't that, it was something else, but it was enough of an impression to be even more disturbing than the sight itself, that like there was a message there. It was all very,
I'd say this. I did genuinely enjoy the film.
Yeah, me too. I did really enjoy it.
And what was interesting though is watching Thomas Jane's performance. As much as I liked his performance, there was definitely a part of me that and not so much like, oh, I wish they'd cast someone else in this film, but more that with all these films, or with all the films being made by Netflix and Prime and stuff like this at a time like this, there are those horror stars, those guys who've gone on to be character actors, that it would be wonderful to see just a very simple one-man show or one-woman show like this film was. A few of these being made, and then these horror actors, whether it's Jeffrey Combs, Robert Englund, Bruce Campbell, Ted Raimi, given these parts in these little Netflix, couple of $1 million, whatever movies, shot up in Vancouver. And given them the chance to do what Thomas Jane does in this film, which is this like really nice, nuanced physical performance. And what was I think what's a shame is that even amongst these VOD movies versus the kind of movie that Bruce Campbell would be cast in, or Jeffrey Combs would be cast in, or Robert Englund would be cast in, there's even a gap between these two. Like, people don't think of those horror stars as like character actors worthy of a film like this, in the same way that Thomas Jane, who was amazing in this, isn't necessarily thought of as worthy for like an A-list movie. You know what I mean? As like a ladder. But I couldn't help, when I was watching the movie, go, it'd be really wonderful to have a handful of movies like this that are like single-handers, or even two-handers, or even maybe like play style movies where there's just like 2 or 3 people in them, but give them to like some character actors that you really just want to see do some nuanced work. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I think the problem is like the people you're mentioning are all, not to put too fine a point on it, a bit past it. You know what I mean? Like you have to be in your 40s, maybe your 50s to do this role.
Right.
And I think that Thomas Jane is like, he is a B-list. He's a B movie actor, right? He is like
the
2000s Jeffrey Combs or whatever. No,
I get that. I'm just saying,
he's been in some big horror movies, but hasn't really broken through. He's clearly got a great physical, presence and great physical talent. But I know exactly what you mean, and I think that's the advantage of streaming, is that those things can get made and then they can stand or fall on their own. Like, there's no way that the Flanagan guy gets movies made after like 2 or 3 movies and then he's dead, because your stuff's not making it to the cinema and it's not like punchy and like gaudy enough to do well on DVD. But on Netflix, it's like, yeah, that could work. And then he's like, you know, he's a big Netflix star just because people stream his movies for whatever reason, when in that peculiar environment of Netflix where you have all manner of films to choose from, and for whatever reason, the subject matter of that movie, that it's a little bit different while at the same time being sort of a bit familiar, is enough to get people involved. And then they really like that stuff. You know, if it's a really good movie, they will be hooked and they'll get involved. And I think 1922 is like that, right? Like, you start it and it is so well put together, even though you know what's happening. Like, I didn't want to stop watching it. You know what I mean? Like,
it was definitely probably about 10 minutes too long. You know, something like this could have been really good in like a taut 90 minutes. But it's, like you say, it's got some really, really inventive, nicely shot, nicely played tableaus, almost like nice scenes, like little self-contained like vignettes within this sort of
him walking up to the farm in the snow and talking to the guy on the porch. Just the way Jane, because all it does is the camera just follows him. You don't know where he's going or what he's doing. But he walks up to this point and then he kind of composes himself, and then he stands and he's like looking upwards and he starts talking, and you're thinking, I've got no idea who he's talking to. It could be like a church or a gravestone or like a scarecrow. Like, you don't know where his mind is at this point, that he would stand and compose himself that way and look up, you know, and talk to something, and you don't know what is going on. And it's a really cool bit of framing and acting from him, and then it's like who he's talking to, and you know, and what that all means. But it's just a great, anybody else would have been, no, we need to set up where he's walking to, and we need to set up who he's talking to and what the scene is. But they don't do any of that, so you're left at like, how far gone is he at this point? You know, like, what is he talking to?
And what's also really interesting is there's actually something in the tone of the film that is represented in the problem that we have with Thomas Jane's performance, as well as the greatness in Thomas Jane's performance. So just as the voice that Thomas Jane is doing and the thing that he's doing with his teeth, where he's decided not to open his teeth when he talks, but rather like grit them and kind of talk through his teeth like that the whole time. Just as that way of speaking borders on parody, but what he's doing with his body and the rest of his face is like beautifully nuanced. The film feels a little like there are occasions where it could tip into parody at any given time, but decides not to go for like the full, you know, wild and crazy slapstick horror, but instead tries to keep itself, you know, tied to the ground a little bit. But I'm thinking about, you know, the decision that he has to like drag his wife's body like out to the well, and the son faints and him dragging the body and stuff, and then just like throwing it into the well, which seems like a staggeringly bad idea to begin with. Like, just it's tantamount to people, like a bunch of kids showing up in a German village and being like, oh, we should go explore that castle. Like, it's a dumb idea. Like, it's a stupid horror movie idea, right? But what's even more ridiculous is then the whole idea of, well, let's shove a cow. Let's shove a cow to the top of the well and then have the cow fall in the well because that will somehow cover up the body. And I loved how they did that. Like, I loved how you just saw the cow and then the wood gave way and the cow like fell down. I thought that was hilarious, but it wasn't. It was both not played for laughs, but I also felt like there was a little, like the director was behind the camera sniggering a little bit. Like, being like,
there was a few things that were clearly meant to be, like his whole expression and how he conducts himself in the hotel room at the beginning is clearly supposed to be a bit funny. It's played a little bit for laughs.
Likewise, when he So as his paranoia, once his son leaves and his paranoia starts to rise on his own when he's in the house by himself, and he sees his wife dress on the mannequin.
Oh, by the way, could we just talk about how the way they chose the mannequin thing, how it's got like some kind of little maker's stamp on it or something, but the way the stamp is secured to the top of the thing makes it look it's got like two little eyes, like it's a Tim Burton shrunken head or something. And really? It's so well done. Where you look at it and it looks like it's got these tiny little eyes on the, where the head.
I didn't notice that.
If you go back and you see it, it's like, again, it's kind of funny. And he's kind of looking at the mannequin and he's like two little eyes. It's just, anyway, it's very cool. It was a small detail, but it was definitely deliberate because there's no, otherwise it would just been wooden. So they had the little brass plaque. It's like a little brass plaque with the two nails in it where it lands. It looks like these little eyes. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think that, the ones like that I've seen, those old fashioned headless, armless, like they're dressmaker mannequins actually. To hang clothes on while you're fixing clothes. They do have those, but yeah, it's cool how it looks. But the way that he did that, then he took it to the basement, then he threw a cloth over it. That whole sequence, you can imagine that being played more for like a manic slapstick in like an 80s horror. Like if that was in an 80s horror or a 90s horror, it would be more like plinkety plink, plink, plinkety plink, and he would like grab it and there'd be like some slapstick as he kind of wrestled it into the basement. And then, he'd gurn or make a like face and then he'd throw the blanket over it or whatever. If it was a Bruce Campbell in his prime or Jeffrey Combs in his prime, like it might be more like that. And I'm not averse to that level of slapstick, but I think the way Thomas Jane did it and the way the director filmed it, you got that from it. Like you got the like, I'm looking at the red dress. It's freaking me out. I'm going to take it to the basement. I'm going to put a blanket over it. Like you got all that from it, but it was done in the more kind of naturalistic, because, not so much in an apartment, but like when I was going to those houses in upstate New York or in Connecticut or whatever, that were like off the beaten path and out in the woods a bit and a little bit creaky, and it's not a space you're used to or whatever, you do get a bit wigged out occasionally. Like, and it's not because there's really something there or because you're like, I don't know, a coward or whatever. It's just occasionally there is something in the atmosphere where you're like, don't want to be in this room anymore. And I don't like how dark it is in the rest of the house. Like it just bothers you. And I can't explain it. It just, your imagination gets like that. It doesn't mean that you go like full tilt, slapstick, gurney, crazy, but you do kind of, the hair goes up, the shoulders go up, you get a bit spooked. And I think he did that really, really well. And that whole sequence was another sequence that I really, really liked. I also thought the ghost of his wife telling him the horror that befell his son and his son's girlfriend. I really liked that whole random Bonnie and Clyde sequence. Like I really liked that. I thought that was really nice. Like it was a nice little genre piece. Like it was like a film within a film.
Yeah.
But it ended with a gut punch without having to show you the gut punch. Like you get what happened, but it's not gratuitous. And I really liked the way that was done. I thought it was very delicate and subtle and well done.
And to use that at that moment to throw proper doubt for the first time on the maybe this isn't all in his head, because the line is, she told me things only a dead woman would know.
Yeah, which is a great line. That's got to be in the book.
That's a great, and as you say, then it's not like, oh, I knew something bad had happened, and then it's what's nice is it's using the it's using the conventions of flashback to make a point instead of it being, or not flashback, but like how characters can like know and experience things they couldn't possibly know and experience, and like someone else's like he would never know what actually happened to his kid. And instead of going, I knew, you know, she told me that he was dead, and then cut to the whole sequence. So instead of it being like, oh, now we've got an excuse to go over and show you what happened, even though he doesn't know what that is. Instead, no, every moment that he's seeing is what's being told to him.
Right. And it could just be her, you know, there's a period after you see that where it could just be her fucking with him. Like it could be her ghost fucking with him and filling his head full of, you know, a horror story about his son.
Yeah. And then later you see the newspaper and then you think, okay, so did he already kind of know?
Right.
Is he, you know, like, so again, the doubt comes back. But in that moment, it is really powerful to have that, the rule of the someone else's story who's important in the movie being experienced by another character, even though they can't possibly know every detail of what happened, right?
Right.
It just works really well.
What I really liked as well with the son's character, not that he got a lot of screen time, but what I liked about it was that you are presented with a family unit at the beginning of a wife who is, you know, likes her drink, right? When she's drunk, likes her sex, likes to talk about sex, talks about sex with the son as well, and wants to move to Omaha and be a bit, you know, fancier and a bit more city-like and a bit more, just more modern and more whatever. Coupled with Thomas Jane, who's like, you know, born on a farm, raised on a farm, will die on a farm. You know what I mean? Farming is what I know. Farming is all that I'm good for, kind of thing. And what's really nice is the son, you believe the son when he goes with the father, because the son, you know, it says in the preamble that the son has been like working the farm with the father and has learnt this, and this is part of what he does, and da-da-da-da-da. And you see them on the tractor together, and you know, whatever it is. And so you buy that the son would like that and want to do that. But then when the son goes off and, you know, storms off and, you know, ends up becoming something of a highwayman or whatever, you buy that as well, because you're like, well, some of the mother's impulsiveness and some of the mother's recklessness would be in the child as well. You know what I mean? So you kind of buy the son having a side of himself that would be a little bit more flighty. You know what I mean? A little bit more.
And once you've removed like that barrier of, well, I guess I could do what I want now.
Right.
I'm already damned, so I might as well use that to my advantage.
Yeah, and I really liked that as well. I really liked the concept of, you know, God and the devil that was brought up in this film versus the sort of not the religiosity of it, but almost like the moralizing of it, the very basic moralizing, you know, well, if God rewards good deeds, maybe the devil rewards bad ones. Like, I really like that concept.
Yeah, and I also like
the
opposite of that from the kid, right? The kid saying, you know, murderers hope there's no God, because then there'll be no hell. You know, like he's more comfortable with the idea of, well, I hope this all means nothing. No, I hope I'm only torturing myself, because otherwise there's a lot worse to come. Right. Which then is like, so it's not even that. So he's not being tortured by the notion of God is angry with me or I've wronged God. Like, it's only on himself. He's the one that's torturing himself for what he did. You know, he owns it completely, which is again quite cool. And like you say, there's an interesting ideas about, if you believe that, well, what does that mean? You know, if you believed in God, after you murder somebody, you'd probably start hoping pretty vehemently, I hope there isn't a God. I mean, I hope nobody saw me do that, because that's not going to go down well, is it?
Well, also because there's also that thing that he knows, you know, one of the reasons why the son goes through with it is he's aware that his mother is not the best of people either. Like,
which is also nice too. I like that she wasn't a saint or whatever. I like that she didn't deserve to get like her throat cut, but you could see how the husband felt driven to it, mostly by the notion of that he would lose the son, right? Like, that's the real tragedy, right? Is that he did everything for his kid,
right? Oh yeah, I didn't bring that up. Yeah, she offers the mother offers Thomas Jane at a certain point, like, you know, okay, I'll give you some of the money and you can keep your bit of the farm, but I'm taking the kid and I'm selling the 100 acres my dad left me.
He says, no, she says, I'm going to sell the farm and you can have a divorce. We both know that's what you want. And then there's a pause. And then he says, and what about the boy? Yeah. And that's what he'll come with me. And that's the point, is that that's what he can't do. And that's why I guess he pulls the kid into his plan, because if he just does it, then on his own, right? Because he could do that. And I can't work out if he's doing, like, he drags the son into the plot, and it's partly, I guess, practical, because he talks about that notion of being alone on the farm and that no one cares what you do, like with your woman on a farm, right? That it's your own little world, right?
Yeah.
That the only people that care about what happened to people who stand to lose financially from the deal. Nobody from her family or friends or anything comes looking for it. So the reason to draw the son into it is because the only way he doesn't lose the kid is if the kid's a part of it, I guess. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think what I'm really enjoying talking about the film is that I think, like you, when I watched it, I was like, oh, that was nice. Like, it was well done, well made. It was nice. It was slow. It was moody. You know, it was fine. But actually, the more you talk about it, you know, the more you explore the themes in it, and the more that you think about, you know, the little sequences in it that kind of tickled you. You know, him running out to try and start the car in the middle of a snowstorm.
Oh yeah, that was super cool.
And losing his hat and, you know, his hand all in pain and everything. But any of those little sequences, when you start talking about it, you realize whether consciously or not, or whether just in good writing, you know, there's a lot to explore there. Like, whether the director consciously put a lot to explore there, or whether it's just, like I say, in the good writing. It becomes a better movie in the telling of it and in the talking about it.
I agree. And I like too that it avoided, and I don't know whether the book's the same, but it avoided a lot of the obvious metaphors, which I liked, in that I was expecting, like, the crops to go bad. You know, that's what would happen, is that the crops would be poisoned and he would lose all his money because, like, the crops were all fucked. And it was never that. You know, it was, he was only brought low by himself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the kid, right? But they brought themselves low. It wasn't like God didn't punish them by ruining the corn or getting the sheriff to look in the well properly, or, you know what I mean? It was just, they only damned themselves. At no point does an external force like cause their problems, you know?
Right.
They're the ones that, even his hand, right? It's like, it's not a snowstorm when you get bit. You know, if you got in a van right then and drove to the town and got someone to look at it, you'd be fine. But it's because he's so mixed up and not thinking straight.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'll just take, everything's like, I've just got to make do now and try and get through the next 30 seconds because I can't handle what I've done. So he just does enough. And then by the time he realizes he's fucked, then he's in the middle of a snowstorm and he can't do anything about it. But,
which again is
interesting.
It's the same as the metaphor of the leak. Like, it starts off the night that the night is, it's the night after the sun leaves, right?
Yeah.
There starts to be a very slow leak in his roof. And he says, like, the leak won't take me any time to fix or whatever. But then it jumps forward 3 months and there's a bloody great hole.
That's right. You know what? I missed that. I totally missed that. You're right. I got the leaking roof bit, but I didn't. And that's really cool. I totally didn't put the two bits together because I know it sounds stupid now. I know that, you know, there was a hole in the roof and the snow's coming through it. And I knew that was like symptomatic of, you know, the place falling apart. But I'd forgotten that, he goes off and gets the mortgage. He's doing all this stuff to try and be like, I need to be busier than that. And so he ignores, Yeah, you're right. It's exactly the same thing as the hand. That's a really good. I missed that totally, but it's very cool.
Yeah, no, yeah. The leak and the hand are the same thing. Like if you,
yeah. You're right. You're totally right.
Tackle something the moment it shows up. Don't let it linger.
But that's the thing, right? Is that what they've done throws them off. And I suppose the point of it is that they feel trapped, right? Like rats. I assume that's kind of at least a little bit of the metaphor. But they're trapped into feeling like they have no other choice.
King has used rats before to kind of convey, otherworldly stuff or menace or
darkness. I mean, there's rats in the corn,
or darkness.
But I suppose it's because it's a very American metaphor, the whole rats in the corn thing, because there's this idea of, there's like fields of golden corn. But if you actually live in those places, then, that there are that rats can get in and fuck it all up. And they're just animals, right? They're a part of nature, and there's maybe not much you can do to stop them, but they're there and they scurrying around in the darkness of the shadows around these fields of corn, ready to, if you don't keep your eye on them, destroy.
Well, didn't one rat also gnaw on the udder of the cow?
Oh, that was so unpleasant.
So gross.
That was so. I mean, it's really effective in that it's probably something that happens, and it's just one of those things. It's like the same thing with the sun and when they show the sun. It's I bet that's what it looks like, and it's just I've never seen it before, but I bet that's what it looks like, and it's. Yeah. It's rats look like, what's interesting is rats look like something. I'm not squicked out by rats like I am some things, but the things they do are so poisonous and destructive and,
well, you didn't watch, have you watched of Unknown Origin? The Peter Weller versus Giant Rat movie?
No.
So what I kept thinking throughout the whole movie, this will mean more to John, your brother, than it'll mean to you. But in Of Unknown Origin, Peter Weller is in a New York brownstone that's really in Toronto somewhere, but in a New York brownstone fighting a giant rat, which literally looks like a dwarf in a rat costume. It's huge. It's like a rodent of unusual size from Princess Bride. Yeah. But he's fighting a rat in a New York brownstone. So he does all this research. He goes to the library and finds out, or you see him looking up rats and reading books about rats and looking up rats on the computer and thing. And then he's at this very well-to-do dinner party. And it's this business critical dinner party, you know what I mean? And everyone sat around quaffing port or whatever. And out of nowhere, Peter Weller in his amazing drawl reels off this long, amazing monologue all about the destructive nature of rats. And it's just, it's literally like a Shakespearean soliloquy, but it's all about these encyclopedic facts about rats and the things that they can destroy and the things that they can eat through and the power that their jaws have and the strength of their teeth and this whole thing. And it's all done with Peter Weller's drawl thing.
All right, I'm sorry,
A
Elliot.
little distracted, Howard.
Just picking through the bones, Elliot. Picking through the bones. Enjoying your stay in New York?
Oh, I'm always happy to be here. You did really good work with the pyramid people on that grain deal.
Did you know that over 1/5 of all the grain on this planet is destroyed by rats? And that's more than drought, flood, or even insects destroys. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
That's over 5 billion pounds of food alone in this country. Now, can you imagine how many mouths that would feed? Not to mention the possible fiscal loss it must mean to a company like this.
No, I can't.
Yes, it's extraordinary. In the 14th century, the rat carried the bubonic plague flea that killed 1 out of every 3 people from India to Iceland. Yeah, it's true. Can you believe that? The most horrible catastrophe in history. Over 1/3 the entire population of the civilized world destroyed by rats. Not bombs, not guns, but rats. You take your average rat, it can wriggle through a hole no bigger than a quarter, swim half a mile and tread water for 3 days. They can eat through lead and concrete with these teeth that are like chisels that exert an unbelievable 24,000 pounds per square inch per tooth.
Really?
Yeah. They can survive being flushed down a toilet and enter a building by the same route. They can fall 5 stories down to the ground, run off unharmed. And 2 rats, mind you, 2. Just 2 give you 20 million rats in less than 3 years. And they say now there's many rats on this planet now as people.
And it's just amazing. And I kept thinking of that scene while I was watching
I can see where you would. I guess the point of the rats is that their function in nature is to dispose of decay, right? To dispose of dead things. And like that's what they do, right? They thrive in disease and decay and death. Like they're a necessary part of nature that, yes, they're destructive, but they're about dealing with the bits of nature that need to be broken down that nobody else wants to touch, right? Which is death.
Yeah, they're like the flies or the cockroaches.
Right.
Of the mammal.
I suppose what's
thing.
happening in the whole movie is the reason they're eating the cow and biting him and all the rest of it and like scurrying around the house is they're basically saying, listen, mate, this is all dead. You just don't know it yet. You know what I mean? You just don't know it yet. You're dead. The cow's dead. What you did instantly, and you knew, like, what's the thing is, like, they both knew it. Like, in their hearts, they knew it was the wrong thing, that they were going to pay for it. Like, they're too steeped in religion not to know, like, that this was not going to end well. But they did it anyway because they felt backed into a corner. They felt trapped. They felt, was there anything they could do? So when the rats, everything the rats do, including to the cow, is just saying, look, we're just getting started. Like, I can't help it if you're, it's like when workers come in and start, well, I can't help you're running late, mate. We've got work to do,
Yeah.
Like, they're basically tapping their little rat watches,
Yeah.
saying to him, we're on the clock here, mate. This is all dead. You've killed all this. So we're going to get started. All right. We're going to get a jump start on all this decay that you've created with your, with your greed and lack of imagination, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
it was just
he's damned by a lack of imagination, if nothing else.
Yeah, and by the most ridiculously shoddy murder plot ever.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, like, it was really, really, really well done. Like the killing of the wife. Like, it was agony. It was real agony, like, because the boy throws a burlap sack over her face. She wakes up, and she wakes up in a drunken but panicked, situation. And then he's like frantically trying to stab her, but is just kind of nicking her and scratching her, and, blood's going everywhere. And then eventually he like cuts her throat, but he does it in a really like messy, crappy way. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I've never seen a death scene quite like that. You know what I mean?
And yeah, what's cool is
it was very well done.
It goes according to plan in the sense that he's clearly put the burlap sack over her face, because they've both gone, I don't want her to look at me. I can't look at her face while I'm doing it. The same way you can imagine if they slaughter a cow. It's like, I don't want to look at the cow or the sheep or the pig or whatever. I just want to like not look at it and cut its throat. And that's it. And that's what they're trying to do. And that works in that the horror of it, like you say, but it is really troubling. But none of it's got to do with like easy, cheap, like her looking at him or like them like catching their eye or whatever. Like, it's all, you don't see her face at all while it's happening, but it's still deeply troubling and disturbing and awful.
Yeah, of course.
It makes no difference that they can't see her face. None at all.
That was another great line, which was the one thing they never tell you about murder is its work.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, you're right. That was a really good one. That was a very Stephen King line, a very good one. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely a movie where the more you think about it, the better it is. And I could watch it again and probably be a little less put off by Thomas Jane's accent, knowing that's what was going to happen, and enjoying more the physicality, which again, you're right. I didn't notice. I noticed in bits while it was happening and enjoyed it, but only talking with you afterwards, I realized it was actually a consistently thoughtful, physical performance all the way through.
Yeah, Yeah, it really was. It really was. And
so wait, but before we wrap up, because we're going to be wrapping up very shortly.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask. So, given this is your first foray back into modern horror,
yes.
What are your thoughts, mate?
I mean, yeah, it was a great place to start. It was a great place to start. I think it was. I mean, yeah, it's a you can't really go wrong with a Stephen King adaptation.
We've proved pretty recently that that's not true.
Well, I mean, Maximum Overdrive, okay, but I mean, in general, most Stephen King adaptations are at least watchable when they're done right.
That's true.
But in terms, where does this sit in terms of modern horror?
No, not so much that, but more like, you were clearly looking for something when you went back into modern horror. Like, maybe it's not all cupboard, cats in bathroom mirrors,
right.
Or remakes.
Right.
So, how did this one make you feel in light of that?
Well, I have to say that while it is a horror movie, it's not a capital H horror movie. It's it's more of a brooding drama with horror. You know what I mean? Like the horror.
I guess it felt more like a kind of a 70s horror movie. Like a lot of 70s movies.
Yeah, it's more kind of Changeling pace.
Yeah, or Rosemary's Baby kind of.
Yes. But it what was nice was this is exactly what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is something that is, a nudge beneath the radar. Like, it's not completely off the radar because it's fucking Netflix, right? So it's not completely off the radar, but it's a nudge beneath the radar with a strong central performance, with someone who clearly understood the text and did, strong and subtle work with it, which I fully appreciate. And it gives me some positive vibes and positive hope towards the rest of my exploration through modern horror.
Well, I think I enjoy it, mate, because it's been my experience that one of the boons of streaming, in my opinion, is that I've seen a lot of shonky action films and I've seen a lot of shonky sci-fi. I haven't seen a lot of great low budget sci-fi or a lot of great action films in the kind of like the Netflix swamp of movies, but I have seen a ton of really great horror films. That the fact that it's like, look, it isn't enough to have like a name star, some lurid box art and a catchy title anymore, right? In order to get people to watch stuff, it actually has to be like reasonably compelling and actually quite good, or they'll just stop watching. And then Netflix aren't going to care about it, right? If you get a movie that people start but then bugger off, they're not interested. They want you for the whole thing, right? So, and they can tell that, right? They can tell how much of a movie they watched. So a valuable movie to Netflix is one that kept you there for 2 hours and then brought you back because you enjoyed that movie and Netflix has good movies. So it has to be not just good, but good enough to bring you back for something similar. So I've seen a lot of really great, thoughtful, like not much budget, actors I've never heard of, directors I've never heard of, but the mood of it and the ideas and the way it's shot, it's just full of imagination and a desire to make something good, not cynical.
Yeah, what kept this is part of me trying. I think this is going to be a running theme as well. We're growing older. You and I are growing older in a part of a generation who is we're not as necessarily self-aware as the generations that are coming up behind us. But we certainly grew up in a time where our parents or our older siblings or whatever were definitely going through the whole self-help thing and the self-awareness thing and and then we got bombarded with social media and the internet and whatever. And all the things that we've gone through makes us fundamentally aware that at a certain point, right? At a certain point, men especially, and I'm going to say men especially because I'm just going to talk about you and me, but men especially become, like set in their way. First of all, they become set in their ways. And then secondly, they become, they start to have the worst opinions on the planet. They start to like, and we've witnessed this, right? Our parents have lived long enough and old enough, more so than our parents' did. They've lived long enough and old enough and have been more vocal enough and had more platforms and things to be vocal on. That we are aware that at a certain point, a man especially gets to a certain age and becomes, like I say, set in his ways and starts to have horrendous fucking opinions about things. And I think you and I are two people who are aware of this fact and want to stave that off as long as humanly possible.
Yeah,
because
I think that's fair, yeah.
We consider ourselves to be, decent individuals with, relatively decent opinions, not looking to shit on anyone and not looking to, be horribly right wing or whatever. The reason why I say that is every so often I confront myself. And when I have an opinion like all modern horror is, remakes and bullshit, I stand in front of myself, metaphorically speaking, and I go, listen, if you were 40 in 1983, right, and the John Carpenters and Stuart Gordons and all the rest of it of the world were coming out, and you had this opinion then, look at everything you would have missed out on. Look at everything you would have not embraced because, well, it wasn't the same as back in my day and blah, right? If you had that opinion, look at all those things you would have missed from the 80s, the things that we hold dear, the things if the moment people started remaking them, it felt like, no, that's mine. Like I was holding on to treasure and people were trying to steal the treasure from me and being like, no, that's mine. We got fiercely protective of it. And not that I'm going to stop hating on remakes because most of them are awful, but that I do try and give myself a talking to occasionally and go, look, there's bound to be good stuff out there. You're not working hard enough to find it. Go fucking find it and explore it. And to that end, 1922 was a great place to start. It didn't disappoint. It's not like it blew my skirt up or anything, but it was, a really strong start. We had a really great conversation about it. We saved this episode out of, a technical abyss that we had fallen into in the first 10 minutes of trying to chat, which really makes me happy. My mood has turned around and it's been a really great first episode back. So to all of that, I think, this is a worthwhile endeavor and long may it continue. So that's, I've ended the podcast in a philosophical and positive forward momentum, which I think is...
Well, long may it continue, Matt. I shall look forward to next week. I will try and choose something that will hopefully spark the same level of happy discussion.
Yeah, don't go out of your way. Just like I say, find 2 or 3 VOD things that you've been kind of hemming and hawing about, and we'll try one of them. And as long as I remain open-minded, and as long as we can have a nice, cool discussion about it, and then it's fine. Then it's great. And yeah, I don't feel being forced into anything by any scenario. We're just kind of you're right. And then I like the choices too, because then you could also feel free to turn all of them down if you want to. And go, that's fine. I'll find something else or whatever. Well, what was really nice was after I compiled my big list of modern horror that I should see, I put out on Twitter and Facebook hey, is there any modern horror that I should really pay attention to that's not remakes or wanky? And a lot of the suggestions I got from people were ones that were already on my list. So that also makes me feel good because I'm like, oh, okay, some people I trust kind of liked it too. So, and I was really happy when I said The Void, which is one that I'm super excited to watch. And you said, oh yeah, I loved it, mate. I'm like, okay, that's because The Void looked to me like something, especially because of its Assault on Precinct 13-esque nature from the trailer. I thought that's one that could have tipped Jim either way. He could have either really liked it or really fucking hated it. And so the fact that you liked it, I'm like, good, that bodes well for me then.
Yeah, no, me and Teresa enjoyed that one. I remember that.
So I'm going to watch that, and I will report back on The Void in the future. Just we'll do a quick capsule like, oh yeah, it was good. And then we'll talk about whatever. But yeah, it's exciting. It's good. Good first episode back. Thank you, sir, for doing this. And we'll talk again next week.
That'd be lovely. I'm looking forward to it, man.
All right, well, there you go. That was this week's episode, 1922, now streaming on Netflix. Check it out. And to play us out, it is another new song. I don't seem to be able to stop writing music. I will have an album out in June. It is June. This is June 1st. I'm recording this, but I'll have an album out this June. Splang, which was my album from Bandcamp Friday of May, is still available. Check it out under Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures on Spotify, Bandcamp, Google Play, Amazon, wherever music is found, you can find it. And this new album, Conspiracy Theories, will be out in June, I think in time for Juneteenth, because I believe Bandcamp is doing a donation drive on Juneteenth. So I'll be a part of that, giving away any profits from the album to a worthwhile cause. Anyway, you get to have a sneak peek. It's one of the few things that, as a listener of the After Movie Diner, you get first, is a sneak peek of my music. So now's the time to turn off if you don't like my music, but now's the time to relish in new music if you are a fan of Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures. Follow me on the socials wherever Miss Plum Fix is found, and enjoy this new song. Thanks ever so much for listening. Bye.
Precious fortunes, all that burns down in the cold, all that shines up in the air tonight. She is all of that and more. All the reading you might have done, thinking of my friend. She's all of that and more. Yeah, she's all of that to me. She's all I ever see. From the stand to down on one knee. She's all of that to me. From the waves to the bottom of the sea. She is all she's all of that. All the water that you waste from the roof down to the floor. All the answers to the quiz you're looking for. She's all of that and more. All the writings that we lost inside the library fire. All the broken locks to every bank safe store. All the voices that we should not drown out and what they're marching for. She is all